Cool. Well, welcome everyone to this meeting of the Finance and Performance Committee. We'll move to the first item on the agenda. We have no public wishing to speak today, so we'll move to apologies first, actually. We have received an apology from Councillor Hammond, and I'll move that the apology be received. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Wheeler, all those in that opinion say aye. Aye. No, it is carried. Declarations of interest. Do any members wish to declare a conflict of interest on any of today's items? No. I'll move to item number 3, public forum. We do not have any members of the public wishing to speak today. So we'll move to item number 4, the financial management report, rate funding statement that was at 31st December 2023. I'll open it up for questions. Actually, firstly, does the director have any comments for me?
No, I take paper as read.
Take paper as read?
Yeah.
Cool. And any questions? No questions? Yep. Councillor Swales.
I have a few actually, and it's so whilst there's an explanation of, you know, a lot of things are overspent in a majority of the things that we see, particularly in legal and risk, and I find that it's probably going to go. So do we have any idea, at the moment it's sitting at 147k, where we might end, because this is only halfway through the year and already we're at a pretty hefty over expenditure, is one of my questions. I've got a couple of others.
Yep, we'll tackle that one first. Director.
Through Chair. I'll defer to legal counsel, but we have continued to spend money on legal. Do we have an idea where it's going to land? There's still 4 months of operations to go.
Yeah.
And so I'm not prepared to put a figure on it. The only thing I will do is indicate to council that we are actively spending money in the legal.
So we've got some things that are still live,
Yeah.
so it will increase.
Yes, and through Chair. I mean, most of those things are being looked through to other committees.
Yeah. Okay. What I'd also like to ask is that.
Sorry, was there any comment on that? Any bad guy? No.
No, the only thing I'd add is that we took a conscious decision to consolidate all the legal spending, legal and budget, whereas previously it was spread across all the business units, so that that was always created.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
Because going forward, that's how we budgeted. That's a good point.
So in the LTP, it'd be better reflected that we won't have these overspends.
Through you, Chair, I can't guarantee we won't have the overspends, but what we are saying is the process in the LTP is to budget a more substantial number for the spend of legal in the legal area, so that we have consolidation, because it helps from an operational angle and from a personal.
Okay. So my next one is I'd like to move to waters, 3 waters. And whilst I understand that the dashboard is out of sync because they go from January to December, and I understand that, my concern is that when we look at over budget all and how they seem to move money around from the different 3 waters where they don't spend or underspend, and yet we know that they'll be coming back to us asking for us for more money. What flexibility do we have? And I'm particularly talking about the money that's not being spent through the first tranche of money that we got through the first lot of money that we got from the National Transition Unit, where we haven't spent it. So where was that money earmarked for? What was it earmarked for, that money?
Through you, Chair, that was earmarked for a transition manager,
Yeah.
which my colleague previously filled.
Yeah.
And so we did underspend it because we utilised an internal person to fill the role.
So we can't use that anywhere else? It was specifically for
It
that?
was for the NTU activity. So that's my understanding. I've deferred to Liesl, but we cannot we cannot reallocate it?
Through you, Chair, no, I correct, I support that, and the funding conditions are quite strict, that it's very much specific to commission activity, which is that.
So we have to give that money back. We get it?
It's paid.
Through you, Chair, unclear at this point, there's been some allocated that we've spent up to activities before they ceased.
Yeah.
The rest have not been allocated or have not received. So we were allocated a portion of the year. We've spent part of that, but not all of it has been dispersed to us for items that we haven't spent yet. So it's a little bit unclear at the moment.
So
Whether there'd be
clarify,
anything.
to clarify the point, we have to claim the money.
Right, thank you.
Paid is-
Sorry.
So even though we've got it there as, okay, that wasn't clear in how it was written with regard to it. The other thing is, when we have these reports, it would be really nice if they actually tied up to the annual plan as to what the budgets are that this money goes against. So when you look at transport and you look at some of the money that's being spent or not spent, and then you go to appendix attachment 4 and you look under land transport of the subsidy road and non-subsidy road, and I have a few issues of how do I tie that up with when I go to roading on pages that you've got where we haven't spent the money or we've overspent the money.
So you're
So how
referring
does-
to attachment 4
Yeah.
and how that doesn't marry up with attachment 1?
Yeah, because when you look at the spending of money in roading and the overspends, and then you look at, and it talks about there are budgets, so attachment 4 talks about
Yeah.
budgets and program that is coming in, but then you look at, and I know it's CapEx, and I'm also looking at OpEx, but then I look at the money that hasn't been spent. The overall land transport is over budget by 150K for the year to date, but it doesn't say whether that's OpEx or CapEx.
That's all OpEx,
I
right?
call it through each year, the narrations are all on the OpEx. So, through each year, again, happy to take it away and give more to the CapEx. We tend to write this report to reflect the OpEx.
Yeah.
We
Whereas
have-
this one here is.
So this one stands alone. Attachment 4 is designed to stand alone, but if councillors feel it needs more information to be useful, take it away.
It would be.
Would you prefer to see it as per attachment 4 with that commentary
Yes,
aspect?
Yeah. absolutely, would
We
be.
can do that for next slide. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair, I've already emailed Kate, Director of Finance, Risk and Digital Solutions, about expanding that
Yeah,
appendix for the CAPEX stuff to give more detail about what are the individual projects that were originally budgeted and now reforecasted. So I suspect a lot of those things are a reflection of the RTP decisions.
Through each year, there has been a lot of movement to the, and you'll see that.
yeah, that's what I've got to ask on that particular paper. Yeah. Thank you.
Any further, councillor Griffiths?
Just a quick question through you, Chair, on animal control. Under budget by 146 due to a dog registration we require. Is this a one-off blip due to the registrations, like I said in the explanation, or will this be changed in the budget to get it as close to zero as possible?
Through you, Chair. It's reflective of the altered operating model and that concerted effort. And it's simply the beginning of that concerted effort, and we would expect to see that revenue budgets to reflect that accordingly.
Councillor Swan.
Sorry, I have another question, and it's about Whirinaki Karitonga, right? So I thought we were the ones that did the repairs and maintenance on that building, or am I not correct? Because I'm looking at it, it's over budget by 79, and the variance is small overspends, larger spend, building repairs and maintenance of 10K. I know it's only 10K, and insurance by 13. That still doesn't give you the 79 that it's over budget. It's only 23. But I thought we did the repairs and maintenance on that.
Well,
building.
even if we do, I shouldn't be, that's because of the line item name, but.
Through each year, it's consolidated
Yeah.
presentation. And the other two, so it's the group, put it that way. And the additional monies was for the arts advisor, that salary.
And if I may, through you, Chair, there are some aspects that we pay Whirinaki for right up front, i.e. the pumpkin cottage.
Right,
I.e. we pay for them to look after the facility for us as well within that cost centre. So they've been paid up front at the beginning of the financial year.
but we're talking about over budgets, not like they've overspent.
The through chair, the raw essence is it's overspent.
Yeah.
At a corporate level.
Yeah,
Yeah. And, so I'm not sure.
so it would be nice at a group level if there's been an overspend. You've only just accounted for 23, and yet when you take that away from the 79, there's still, and you'd like to know then, where did the rest go? And I understand that it's from a group, but you know, it's almost only been told half a story.
Oh, as I've just said, sorry, through chair, that the remaining monies was for salary.
Yeah.
Of the arts advisor, which was unbudgeted. So that's why we are overspending for so much of salary.
Okay.
Why was it unbudgeted?
Through your chair, it was, missed in the final budget. That was my understanding.
Any other questions? No, we have a mover in Councillor Holderness, we have a seconder, His Worship the Mayor. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary no, it's carried. We move to the non-financial performance report for 2023, 2024, 42. I'm going to open it up for questions.
Yeah, just one here, Chair.
Oh, yep, Councillor Carey.
Just in terms of the water performance, I guess it's good to see those resolutions have almost halved, but can we explain why that is and we're being asked for more funding? Like, is that going to get that back into those timeframes? What's the narrative there?
This is on.
This is on our,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so just the whole water supply, like water measures, I believe it's referring to.
No, prefer to see.
Yep.
Through you, Chair, there are no simple answers to any of those questions, and those who have been around this table for some time will realise that these are ongoing challenges. In reality, at the moment, Wellington Water is citing a number of reasons for falling outside of the parameters which are set, and they range from inability of them to be able to find adequate resources through to, in some cases, particularly in relation to Upper Hutt, reference to there being inadequate funding for particular activities. What we have done is we've attempted to address particularly that funding issue with Wellington Water, and on that basis, we have sought assurances from them that if we do provide additional funding, what measure of increased productivity will we get in exchange for that? That has been further reinforced with our submission on the letter of expectation towards what the statement of intent for Wellington Water should reflect going forward, and that has general support from other councils as well. So yes, it's a good question. Why would you want to invest more when they're struggling to do what they say they're going to do? And they have provided assurances that in this financial year at least, they can spend up to an additional 1.1 million on repairing leaks and other failures within the network. But of course, what I've done is gone back to them and said that we would be linking any additional funding to an expectation of X number of additional repairs being carried out within that timeframe. A long-winded answer, but probably not, doesn't quite satisfy what you're asking.
I appreciate that. Just one supplementary as well.
Yeah.
It's just on the consumption too, which is up nearly 100 litres on the previous quarter. Is there any reason for that? It just says the data and this is the high use, but
Leakage. So assume is the answer.
yeah, have they increased by 20%?
Oh,
Okay. Director answer.
Through you, Chair, the actual water consumption figures coming through the bulk water meters, I got that information about an hour ago. And what that's showing is that despite the increase in leaks and despite the hot weather, Upper Hutt has produced, consumed 0.2% less water in the current financial year compared to the same time last year. Now, that might not sound very much, but in dollar terms, that equates to around about $100,000 worth of water, which will be if we continue on that trend, by the time we get to the end of the billing period, should see us get a rebate of somewhere around 150K. And that is, I mean, despite what these numbers are saying, based on the water coming through the bulk water meter off the main, the volume of water being drawn for Upper Hutt is actually down this year compared to last year.
And what data are they relying on then to get these figures?
Through the Chair, I don't know. I'm relying on more data that comes from the meters of the main, which are supplied by Wellington.
So we've got two sets of data telling us different things for the same measure. Councillor Carson.
Yeah, thank you. Just to remind people that when we set these performance targets for Wellington Water, I said that the performance targets that the council agreed to finally were unrealistic, and therefore there's no wonder that the actual figures in red are going to be wildly different from the performance indicators we established. So in my mind, the performance indicator we should have established was UD, unable to be determined, because no matter what figures you put in there, because the Wellington Water can't perform in terms of the funding we give them. So, to my mind, comparing the performance we've set against the actual being achieved, I think it's just a bit of a red herring, and the real problem gets back to the whole Wellington Water efficiency question. And that's a better performance indicator I would have. So I don't have any regard to these figures whatsoever.
Well,
I don't think they mean anything.
You'll recall that Wellington Water long-term plan a few years ago asked us to amend them and council resolved not to. So.
That's right, exactly.
Councillor Neal.
Mine is also about water, but in a different place.
Yep.
Residential pools.
Which page, sorry, councillor?
32.
Thank you.
So, inspection of residential pools within statutory timeframes, 99.98%. I mean, it's so close to 100%. What does it actually mean in numbers? Surely half a pool or quarter of a pool?
Through you, Chair, I can quite specifically, that was one pool. It was one pool. And thank you for asking that question, because I inaccurately did say that we were 100% compliant, so I acknowledge that that was off, but 2%, there were two, yeah. So, in terms of our latest stats, which really don't relate to that particular quarter, I believe, but it is something order of one.
And
Yes.
so, and the campaign that we have going on at the moment around pool inspections, are we seeing a trend towards less people having pools or more people having pools?
Through you, Chair, I'd actually have to, ask the staff that question because, and maybe we're councillor, that it's not only the permanent pools, it's the temporary pools that are also subject to those regulations. So happy to look at that, with staff and report back to the committee, but I couldn't answer that confidently around temporary pools.
Yeah, please, so Chair, I would be quite interested in seeing what trends there might be around pools.
His worship.
Just if we go to planning and regulatory, the issue that lack of plumbing and drainage resources appears a couple of times. Is that been rectified?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, the internal resource. Yes, look, we have had a retirement in that space and we have retrained a number of staff who are now technically competent in that space. Look, you know, and that's a testament to the team. Look, I'll acknowledge newly qualified, technically competent staff, the same as someone who's done that work for decades, of course not, but they are technically competent to do that work.
And then allied security had issues for a large number of months with staff, and that's noise control and animal control, so we addressed that.
Through you, Chair. Yes, we have. I'll be careful in the answer of my question just around commercial, but certainly I can report we have seen a significant improvement. There's been active work in that space. And in terms of how we operate for the committee, we've also pulled in, not to the same extent, but analogous to environmental health. We have looked to, we're testing a model where we are utilising broader compliance staff to also fulfil some of those roles that were previously exclusively contracted.
Councillor Swales.
Just for information, for me, I'm on page 29 under sustainability. And whilst we're meeting the target with regard to recycling collected by council thing, I mean, we're in the blue, which is great, but it would be nice to know what we did last year. So that as we're climbing, we can see actually how much is it increasing, because it just seems better than last year, but what was last year? It's just an observation. It would be nice to have that figure.
Yeah, and I thought we'd done that before as well. I mentioned it
Yeah,
before, but
we've,
we've done it for carbon, but
yeah, but if,
the recycling too.
yeah, if we could do that, that would be really, really good. And just a point, going back to the first paper under planning and regulatory, it did say that it was an underspend of 493K, which I suppose is reflecting in the non-performance compliance in that area. Would that be correct?
Through you, Chair, can I just clarify which para from the earlier report you were talking
So if you were looking at the earlier report where it talked about planning on page 5, planning and regulatory, the overall planning and regulatory services were under budget by 493 for the year to date. Would that explain some of the non-performance in this page that we're looking at?
Oh, yeah, sorry, through you, Chair. A significant portion of that is also reflective of there was a significant reduction in some of our operating costs in terms of moving that model around, bringing particularly environmental health in-house. And as I just indicated before, we have some outline and just trialing the operating model, particularly in that compliance services space around front resource, higher portions of those services in-house rather than contractors. And certainly indications so far as it's more cost effective to do so in-house.
Great savings.
Yeah.
And that 493K is made up of all those areas. So you're planning to liquor licensing, that big chunk for animal control. So it's not just
Planning.
councillor.
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to ask about the 400, oh, sorry, page 22. I just wanted to ask about the 454 litre per person per day consumption, primarily being due to leakage. And so how many current leaks are there in Upper Hart? And what does it cost to repair a leak?
I assume we have to come back to you, but do you know the figure of the top? Yep. Yeah.
Through the chair, there are, in terms of leaks, there are leaks which are reported, and that's currently running a month. And clearance rate on those is somewhere around about 70 a month. But there is also additional leaks that have been discovered through a leak detection program that Wellington Water are running, and that's identified. So the total of leaks outstanding from both sources currently sits at around about 450. The cost of repairing a leak, Wellington Water a week ago advised that that was between $2,000 and $2,500 per leak on average. But the information today suggests that the cost could be over $3,000.
How much of that cost is traffic management, which seems to be the new big spender?
What I can say in relation to contracting in general for work in the roadway, whether it's leaks or anything else, traffic management, even for our own work, constitutes about a third of the total cost.
Shocking. Yeah. Good for some. Councillor Neal.
Just supplementary to that. So that number of leaks, I'm presuming that is only leaks outside of the Toby on, or is it all leaks, including those that turn out to be inside the Toby?
Through you, Chair, these are leaks on the public side of the Toby, but can include the Toby itself. But
So-
they're not private property leaks.
Right, so how do we? So if there's a leak and someone has to go out and check it out, and it turns out to be on private property, what's the cost of someone coming out and checking up on that? Do we know? Because obviously that's not 3,000, but that's still eating into the budget, isn't it?
Through you, Chair, yes, the initial triaging of a leak, i.e. going out and having a look, that is a cost that would fall on council. But in general, most of the leaks that are reported are on the public side of the main. They're generally not private side. And one of the reasons for that, one of the reasons for that is that most people, it's obvious to most people, if the leak is on the private side, they're going to have to pay for it. And so they would, some people, of course, would look to try and inflate that cost if they can, but most people know that they know where the Toby is and they know it's, they can see it. Most people do the right thing and get it repaired. But having said that, and it will come up in a later paper, there have been instances of people who are aware of a leak and have taken no action to repair it.
Yeah.
When we tell someone there is a leak on their property, do we just say, get it fixed, or do we say, this is what you need to do? Or these are some plumbers, or do we kind of help out in that way?
Through the chair, and it is one area I would compliment Wellington Water on, is that having done that initial triage, their communication with the affected party is very good. They do offer up advice and solutions as to how those private property leaks can or should be fixed. The process from there on in is that there is a regime of going back and checking to see whether or not action has been taken. And if after a period of time action is not taken, then the next step is for us to install a water meter on that property and charge for water consumption through that meter.
Councillor Griffiths.
Through you, Chair, I just wanted to say that I quite often hear from people that when a leak is repaired, it sprouts further up the street later on. And I'm just wondering if there's anything Wellington Water are doing to assess pipes where they've fixed a leak. Are they assessing whether there needs to be replacement along that particular pipeline itself?
Yeah, through the chair, that is generally the practice, but often there are more pipes needing substantive renewal than there is funding, and so it doesn't mean that if you're getting multiple leaks on a particular pipe, that pipe will be replaced immediately. It could be some years before that comes onto the replacement program.
Thank you.
Councillor Gomez.
My first question is, can somebody tell me what the Wellington Water quoted leak rate is in Upper Hutt? Was it 42% or something?
Yeah, through your chair, yes, that was, well, depends on what point in time you look at. If you go back 3-4 years, the quoted leak rate in Upper Hutt was 15%. The latest, the figure that they've been quoting recently is 42% through the public part of the network and an additional 10% on private property leakage. So they aggregate those two figures and 52% leakage rate.
That brings me to my question, if I can. Our indicated 542 litres per person per day, per household per day, per resident, sorry. Take that 42% off that, whether it's actually union per day, it's the lowest in New Zealand. Under 250 litres per person per day.
Through your chair, that is one possible way of doing a calculation, but the other is to, I guess, question whether or not 42% is actually right.
Thank you.
No further questions? Yeah, Councillor Alter.
Through the chair, I just wanted to say about the sewage system on page 25. Where the system blockages. So I know from visiting the wastewater treatment plant that they get a lot of wet wipes and shampoo bottles and all sorts of things that shouldn't be in the wastewater system at all. I'm just wondering how far up the sewage system we're finding blockages. Is this just at the wastewater treatment plant where they're captured? Or are there actual blockages and overflows happening further up the system?
Yes, through your chair, the answer to that is definitely yes. Blockages can and do occur generally where there is a change in directional gradient within the pipe network. And these figures here, bulk of these figures here refer to blockages within the upper part of the network, as opposed to at the treatment plant.
Thank you.
All right, I'll move the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Alter. All those opinions say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. That's carried. We now move into the public excluded part of the meeting. Do we have a mover? Councillor Alter, and seconder, Councillor Griffiths. So we move the public, Councillor Holderness. Be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings in accordance with the reasons noted in the agenda. All those in that